I'm really excited for this video because I'm going to showcase one of my side projects that I did using the Pygame module in Python. I implemented the Hangman game. You might have seen this game being implemented in the terminal in a lot of videos on YouTube, but this is different because I used Pygame to generate a complete GUI interface for the game. If you're finding it difficult to start a project or finishing one that you have already started, be sure to check out the video completely because I'm going to include my plan that I followed to complete the process and not get stuck in the way too much. If you're not already a subscriber, be sure to check out the channel and subscribe because I'm going to post a lot of videos on becoming a good software developer, from projects to coding and developing your resume and portfolio and much more. Here is the first step in the process. First of all, you want to have a picture in your head of what the final product will look like. This can happen in two ways. One, you could see the project somewhere and look at what their polished version is and do something similar to that. Not exactly the same, but similar. And there's also another option of talking to users who will actually use the product and then getting requirements from them. What are the buttons that you want and what are the features that you want, how it should look like, and everything else. In my case, I took inspiration from YouTube and I looked at others Hangman Game projects in Pygame and I did something similar. It shouldn't be the same, probably because you don't want it to look like a ripoff, and but the game really doesn't change, right? The fundamentals of the game are the same. So you could change the colors, you could change the positioning of the buttons and everything else. So be creative. Now let's look at what my final product looks like so that you'll understand how the game actually works and what you could do from there. This is the main page and this is what you will see when you start the game. Now you can see the instructions and the title, and there are two buttons, play and exit. They do exactly what they say. Now if I click on the play, you can see that there are a lot of stars in this word. This basically mentions that there are 5 letters blocked off in the word. Now I restricted the size of the word to be 8 characters, but this word, which is chosen at random, has only 3 letters in it. So the other 5 letters are actually blocked off. Now you can see that one letter is already revealed, the letter A. This is to make it easier for the user to play it, because if I don't give any hints, it's kind of difficult because you only have 5 chances in this game. And if you choose 5 wrong letters, then the diagram will reveal itself, which is a man being hanged, and you lose the game. The number of hints will actually change depending on the word. Now, other than the word section, you can see that the title is there and a small code is there. And then in the top left, you can see that Let's Play Hangman is also being displayed. This is just the title of the window. Now this is the main section. This is where all the choices can happen. And you can see that when I hover over these buttons, they actually highlight themselves by changing the background color to yellow. Now you can choose one letter from all of these letters, and if you choose the letter which is already in the word, which is given as a hint, it will just become green first. And if the letter A is occurring twice, in the hints it could only be shown as once, right? So the second letter will actually reveal itself. After this, we have to select 2 more letters. So let's choose one letter in randomly and see if that's the correct one. Right, so C is wrong. Let's choose D. Okay, D is there. But you can also see that when we choose a wrong character, it turns red and one part of the diagram is revealed at a time. Let's choose Y and see if that's the right one. And that's correct. So I won. And you can, after winning, you'll see this page and you can go back to the main page, which is the instructions page. And then you can exit if you are feeling okay with the game. And then you can play again. Now you can see that we chose a 4-letter word this time and the words are chosen at random. And we have one hint here. Now if I choose E again, there is another E. This was the feature I was mentioning about. So we have 2 E's filled out. Let's look at what are the other letters. A is wrong, okay. B is also wrong, okay. C is also wrong, right? You can see one part of the diagram being filled at a time. Now when I look at D, it is correct. Now I want you guys to guess the word and put it in the comment section. I know the word right now, so I want to actually sabotage this so that you guys can get the word. Okay, we have 4 wrongs right now, and if I put one more wrong, the game will end. Here we go. The man is hanged and you see game over. You can play again, or you could exit, or instructions. Now let me just exit this because I think you have seen most of the features of the game. Now you can see that it is asking me to kill the Python process. Let me cancel that and show you what is happening here. This is basically like a log of what the user is doing inside the game. This doesn't affect the game at all. This is just print statements in the Python so that I can understand what is going on in the game and if there is a fault in the game, where there is a fault. This is basically for debugging purposes, and I wrote this while coding. You can see that the game started is mentioned here, and this happened after the user clicked play button, right? And then A button is clicked, and then this is for something else, and so on. So this is basically for the debugging purpose. This could be a really helpful tip because some of you might be stuck at some point and don't know how to identify the problem, and this could be helpful. Okay, for this next step, you actually want to write stuff down by breaking your project into smaller pieces that you can handle. Now, I'll show you what I did. I wrote it into this book. It just took me 1 page, right? Because this project is so small, I didn't need to write a lot of documentation. So I just did 1 or 2 pages of simulations, like what it will look like and what are the parts, and then I worked on it. But if you're handling a larger project, you'll need a good documentation because you'll find yourself referring to it a lot of times. Now, documentation doesn't necessarily mean all the class diagrams and stuff. You could do that if you are interested in it and if you're good at it, but you could also do like a small like take a pen and paper and write down what are the parts that you'll actually implement. Now I'll show you what I actually wrote down in detail and explain what my thought process was while starting this project and how it changed overall. Trust me guys, this will take like hardly a half an hour to 1 hour to do it properly. Depending on the size of the project, it could take longer, but it is really worth it because if you don't do this properly, you'll spend for every 1 hour you could have done documentation, you'll spend 10 to 20 hours figuring out how to solve a problem. Like if you're changing a part of the project, it will become even more difficult. So definitely do the documentation, not in the official sense of it, like the formal sense of it, but at least to keep your mind organized about what you're doing. Now this is the page I showed you earlier. You can see a small snippet of what I was thinking in my head, and you can also see that I made some notes roughly, like I started on 27th and I ended it by 29th 7:30. I keep track of all my I'm starting to keep track of all my things like projects, how much time I'm doing the projects in, and how much time I'm spending on learning stuff and so on. This really helps with productivity. Now you can see that I wrote the diagram steps, and this is the first, like you can see the vertical line which is the first step, and then the horizontal line which is the top of the bar which is the second step, and so on. And you can also see that I scratched some of them off, like the sixth step which was supposed to be change in his expressions, but I thought that that was too complicated and an unnecessary step, so I scrubbed it off. All of this was done in design phase because you can't really change much of the project once you've already started, or it just wastes a lot of time if you're doing that. So I finalized the diagram which is supposed to be just 5 steps, and that's it. So the diagram is part is done. Now once I had tackled the diagram part, what are the other parts that I had to do? You see that instructions is write down, but I actually wrote these instructions after all of the project is actually done. Like the main playing of the game is already done, then I wrote the instructions because I wanted to put a home page first. So you can also see at the diagram below, which would be like the mock-up of how it would look like, how I thought of the game would look like, and that's what I drew. And below you can see some other diagrams which I thought of implementing to make the diagram a bit more interesting, but they are just too complex and unnecessary steps in my mind, so I just didn't implement them. So you can see that I broke the pieces, I broke the project into several pieces. First I looked at how the whole project would look like, and then I broke the diagram, which is one of the main parts, into pieces. And also I divided I divided the project into different parts, like the letters A, B, C, D, F, where they would be positioned, and like how many of them will be in the row, and all those decisions were made while doing the project. And most of it was in a planning, but some details, like how many of them will be positioned in each row, I took them during the coding phase, because they are such little things that you can't really know them beforehand and adjust them, because the sizes look odd on different displays, so I had to account for that. That's why I did that during the coding phase. Now you can see here, this is the second page, and these were just some bugs or different features that I wanted to implement in the program after I finished the main, like the core part of it. Like I finished the playing part, like if you could click the letter, it will show up. But there were some bugs, obviously. I didn't have a timer to display the diagram after I finished. So if you just click the fifth wrong choice, it would just go to you lost directly. But I didn't want that. I wanted a 2 seconds pause, so that users can actually see that they went wrong, and it'll be little more interactive. And then I had to take care of the missing letters, and there were also some problems with the buttons, like some buttons were able to be clicked multiple times, and I had to account for that. And I wanted to implement the U1 page, which is basically game over or U1 page. And there was also this issue with letters, where some letters were being filled even without clicking, and I also took care of that after the coding phase. This is basically the testing phase, and these were the bugs that I got, and I took care of them by noting them down and solving them one by one, and just testing again and again, so that I can see that the bugs are gone. Now that you understand what are the steps involved and how I planned my project, let's get into my code and how I implemented it. Now I wrote all of my code in just one Python file, and I definitely don't advise this. The purpose of dividing a project into smaller chunks is because if you have a team working on a bigger project, you'll understand that you have to do your part of the project and others will do their part of the project. And if you have just one file, they can't do that. So you essentially have to break down the project and then create modules of files, where in each module you do specific things to that module. If you want to check it out, you can find the link for this down below in the description, and that link will lead to my GitHub repo where I posted this. And I created this in Windows, so you shouldn't have any problems trying to run it in Windows using Python. But if you're trying to run it on other platforms, just you might have to change some things in there. Apart from that, I didn't use any other development environments like Anaconda or anything. I just used Python 3.6 or 7, and then I used ideally inside the Python, that's it. And these are the two packages that I had installed for some of the features in the game. Pygame obviously for the whole GUI experience, and then screen info just to get the width and height of your actual monitor, so that I can work with it inside the game. Okay guys, I am not going to explain every single line of the code, because I actually tried that and it took half an hour just to complete a couple of functions. So what I'll do is explain the higher level, what are the functions being used and what is the purpose of each function. And if you want to really understand every line of the code, you can check it out in the repo and Google stuff which you don't know. Right, let's get started. Now we have all the import statements here, and then all of this code right here are the the arrays that I'm initializing, and these are the actual colors that I'm using inside the game. These are the fonts that I'm using, right? And these are just other functions. This is to get the monitors, and this is to center the window, and this is to actually start the game and initialize its caption, which you see at the top left, to let's play Hangman. And this is basically all the stuff required to get the actual code going on. This is like the basic stuff that you need before you actually start working on the game. Now after we do that, there are a bunch of functions here. I'll just do one thing. First I'll explain this class right here, and then I'll go down below and I'll show you the actual functions being called, so that you'll understand the sequence of the functions being used. Now this button class is actually used to define all the buttons uh, in any screen. Like on the main screen, which you see at the when you start the game, you have play button and exit button, right? This class is used to define those buttons. And then you have all the letters, which are basically alphabets, A, B, C. All those buttons are also defined using this button class. They are objects of this class, and I have some of the properties here. This is the initialization function, and you have all the properties like the color of the button, and if it is clicked or not. Because if you click the alphabet button once, you don't want it to act again, right, when you click it second time. So I have to take care of all those, and these are all the variables that I'm using here. And then I call the isOver function, and then this is a method inside isOver, and this is the draw method. Now the isOver method will actually uh, see if the mouse is over your button, on top of your button, and it will return true if the mouse is actually over the button. This is useful when you hover the mouse over the letters. You want them to be highlighted, right? It will change the background color. So for that to work, I use the isOver method. And we also have the draw method. This basically draws the button onto the screen. Then we define the only class that we are using inside our code, and all other things are functions. Now before we jump into functions, I just want to say I want to go to the bottom of the code, because you want to understand it in a sequential manner, so that you will understand what are the functions being used and why they are being used. Now the first function that will actually be called is the game loop function. Then inside the game loop function, we have the start page function. Now the game loop is basically the start page, the actual playing of the game, and then the game over page will be displayed, and the game exit. All those things will happen inside the game loop. So the game loop function is like the main function inside which all other functions are called. And we start by calling the start page functions. Now these three functions will not actually be called, because if you exit the game, the game function will be called from the game over screen or from the start page. So these three functions will not actually be called. I don't know why I put them there. Let's just leave that and go to the start page function. The start page function represents the first page that you see. You see the first main menu, right? This contains all the instructions, and this has the play button or the exit button. Here you can see the play button is clicked and the exit button is clicked. This is the event loop, this is the event loop which is used to get, if you click on the button, this loop will actually get that input and then work based on that input. This is all the rendering that is happening. When you want to change something, you draw it onto the screen, and then you update the screen, and that is what is happening here. And clock, which I defined before, is used here. Clock.tick 60 basically means that your game is running at 60 fps. And then you have pygame.display.update. As I said, if you want to update something, you change that thing, put it onto the screen, and then update the Pygame display, so that it will actually reflect on your display. Okay, that's start page. And if you click on the play button, this is where you will go. This is the actual all the play functionality is inside this function, the play function, right? Here are all the, well, I provided comments for everything, so you can just check it out. And here is the event loop for this function. And if you click on a button, here is the actual main logic that will happen. And then you have these things, the title and the caption, and then you have all the blanks being displayed, and you have the answer being checked and displayed, and all the alphabets and everything else. So you just have to go through this code to understand it. And this is the overview, and this is the main function, like that main playing function. And then you have the game over function, which basically happens when you either win or when you lose. this function is called, and it will display the text according to what happened. And it has three functions, right? So it has the play again function, and the game exit function, and the instructions button. That's a game over function. And then we have the game one function. Oh, sorry, okay, if you lose the game, you get the game over function, and if you win the game, you got game one function. They're basically the same, except that the text is different. I should probably reduce this code, right? And again, you see these things after you have completed it. That's why you have to have better planning. And this is basically like my first side project, so I don't think I should judge myself too much. And then we have the game exit function. This is called either when you click the close button on your window, or when you click the exit button inside the game. This function is called, it will quit from the Pygame first, and then it will actually kill the Python process that is running. Now these two are the only functions left. The find function actually so the find function actually returns the index of the character inside the string. This is used to identify if you click the character, you have to check if that character is inside the string, right? So use find function and get the index of where the character is. And then you have show shape function. This is basically used whenever like you have to hang the person, right? If you click the wrong answer, then show shape function is called inside the play function. Whenever you click a button and it's wrong, the show shape function is called, and you have to give which shape you want to show, like the first shape or the second shape, and based on the parameter that you give, it will draw that function and update the screen. And these are all the shapes being drawn. You can understand more about this if you know a little more about the Pygame. So go through the code, have a look, and if you want to change anything, do it on your repos, and let me know what you think about this. So this is a wrap up of code. Now that we have looked at the code, let me talk about some of the resources that I use to build this project. Any self-learner will know 3 really good platforms to know stuff. And these 3 are, first of all, Google. And then when you Google stuff, you'll be able to find Stack Overflow answers for a lot of your questions. And so that's a great platform. And the third one is YouTube. I started the YouTube playlist first for the Pygame, and I'll lead you to it. You can just type Boston Pygame, and these are the search results that appear. Now, the first result, which is Pygame and Python game development playlist, this is the playlist you want to watch because he really goes into depth and he teaches really well. So at least watch first 5 videos so that you'll get a feel of the feel of Pygame, and then you'll be able to search stuff on your own in the Google and get answers in Stack Overflow. Now, I just want to give you some references so that you can use them if you're not getting exact answers in Stack Overflow. You can just type Pygame in Google and you'll get this site called www.pygame.org. This is, I think, the official site for Pygame. And if you go into this site and then click Docs, you get this page and it has some tutorials of making some games, I guess. And then you have these references. Now, you might not use most of these references, but you will need at least some of them. For example, pygame.font, which I used for creating different font sizes, different fonts basically. And then you have pygame.color, which is definitely needed. And then you got pygame.display, which is also definitely needed. And I used pygame.draw, right? These are different modules inside the Pygame package, and you'll end up using some of them. So if you want to have a single place where you can search all this stuff, you can just go to this exact site and then you can use it. Again, guys, if you have any doubts while doing the project, the best way to answer them is to Google them. Let's say I have a doubt about pygame.init. I saw it in the tutorial, I don't know what it is. And let's say Sendex hasn't actually gone into depth. He actually goes into depth for a lot of things, but he might have overlooked something. In that case, you might want to Google it. So just type pygame.init and then you'll get these. Now you got a reference for pygame.init and pygame.org, and then you got this Stack Overflow question right over here, which says what exactly does pygame.init do. If you open this, you get the answer, right? And most of the times they're really reliable. The more upvotes there are, it's generally the better answer. So this is how you just Google stuff and then find Stack Overflow answers. If not, just find a site where it can be understood really quickly and then move on. Now, although I use this approach, I wouldn't say this approach is good for everyone. If you want to learn Pygame from scratch and you want to learn it not because of some project that you're doing, you want to actually learn it completely, then I would say watch the tutorials completely, and after each video you actually have to practice the tutorial so that you'll actually able to remember it. Otherwise you'll just forget it as soon as the project is done. Now I have done some small projects before this, like really small, and I don't think I'll be using Pygame a lot. I just wanted to dabble in it because GUI programming is something that I'm interested in. So I just use this to quickly build something and show you guys. If you like this project and want to check out the code, you can go to my GitHub repo. The link is in the description down below. If you have any doubts, you can comment down below and I'll definitely answer them. If you want to talk to me personally and reach out to me, you can use the Instagram ID that I provided down below in the description. And if you like watching these kind of videos and you find them useful, be sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Or you can catch me on my live stream and I'll answer all your questions, or we could just hang out.